Alright, whānau, it's now on 9 a.m. I officially open our Civil Defence and Emergency Management hui for today, Wednesday, 26th of February 2025. I'll open our hui with a karakia. Amen, we tatu. Tira maramanuku, tira maramarangi ko koe kei pauri te ngākau o tāngata, kia māwete wete te ngākau o tāngata, tērā te tūwhiri ka tūwhiri, tērā te tira marama ka tira marama. He koia te mahara, tangohi e te atamai, hei pau tūwhiri mau, hei pau kōrero mau, hei pau atamai mau. Tūturu whiti whakamaua kia tīna, haumi e hui e, Karakia. Okay, welcome everybody. We have an apology for lateness from Mayor Stolz, so a mover. Yep. Moved by Councillor Parata, seconded by Councillor Huriwai. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. We have no declarations of interest. I'll take us to page 3, non-confidential. Moved by Councillor Taufua, seconded by Councillor Parata. Any matters arise? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Move us to page 7, Action Register. Any questions in regard to the Action Register? If not, no leave of absences, no acknowledgements or tributes, other than make sure you guys all go watch Matatini. Most of our groups are performing on Friday. So, yeah, including our own Councillor Ria.
And Jane Tucker.
Oh, yes, and we have no public input and petitions, extraordinary business, notices of motion, adjourned business. So finally, I'll take us to page 8, which is the statutory declaration of delegations and appointments under the CEDM Act.
Through the chair, can I just phrase a correction to one of the names?
Yep.
That is on the attachment, page 2 of the attachment of the agenda. This correction, it's not under the 26.2 powers to perform the powers of the controller. That's not David Hatfield there, that's Libby Young.
I've seen as we're in that point, I was going to ask my question at the end, but in regards to 26.2, in lieu of recent notifications to us, I was wondering whether or not
we removed Joe.
Yes.
Yep. Yes, that would be a good thing to do.
Okay. All right, questions. Councillor Parata.
I just had a question in regards to the controller. So in order to be a group controller, you have to have undertaken certain training and certification. Training, yeah. Training, yeah. And then you get it. You get tested in your ability to be able to be
Pretty much, I mean, it's not just appointment by title. Much as and the Dean is going through this as well. The process we have both for appointment and evidential aspect of being able to perform under the pressure that's required to do the job. We've embarked on that, and it's still underway 12 months in terms of connecting people around, firstly to understand the function in detail. You've got obviously legislation to have oversight for, and in the personal aspect to be able to manage and coordinate what it takes up to including a large complex event there. So we have a controller training plan that really is required to be evidenced by attendance with and out-of-region courses as well, and sector courses. And a lot of it also focuses on really having an intimate knowledge of our key hazards that are the most frequent, most likely. So obviously flooding and the awareness particularly for our catastrophic risk, which is the Hikanomi or tsunami event.
Just add, I think that's a really important question because at the moment there's currently no statutory requirement for controllers to have any particular certification as far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm But the requirement is that the council or the CDM group approves the group controller, who needs to be suitably qualified, as been outlined in terms of what they need to be managing and the magnitude of which. What we've done is we're making sure that any of our alternate controllers go through the prerequisite training. So far, all of them actually, I think we've all done it now. We've done the RANS, what's called the RANS training, which is a 5-day intensive program where you've gone through drills, so you've got a good understanding. And also when you are recruiting for the Civil Defence Emergency Manager, who normally becomes the group controller, you have your emergency partners engaged in that process as well. But that might be something that we might see change in the new legislation, that there will be a certification requirement for group controllers.
Yeah, 3 years. I think the legislation will definitely change that. The Act at the moment says suitably qualified and experienced, but it doesn't qualify that. However, the coroner's inquiry in court from the Christchurch earthquake brought it to the fore, stating what training had been given to the controllers, what courses, what experience, and what support were there, and how they can be controllers courses. And that'll be picked up, we think, in the new legislation coming out at the end of this year.
I have a couple of supplementaries. I think that this is an incredible list of very skilled people. Just knowing that these are the people based in Te Tairāwhiti who are able to be the ultimate controller. Is there a reason Dave Wilson's name doesn't appear? Maybe it was left off by omission because he is still an alternate controller. Yeah, because he's got the by resolution of council. That's where he put Ben in. So we probably do, after we have a conversation with him to see if he's willing to continue as an alternate. The only other thing I wanted to just confirm that this particular policy it's not bespoke to Te Tairāwhiti, is one that most councils have undertaken, is that correct?
Through the chair, all councils will have delegations and appointments in some form in place, but this exercise was really just trying to centralise it all in one place, so it was easier to deal with from an administrative perspective.
My last supplementary. I just want to confirm that it is a priority for Te Tairāwhiti and that the controllers are aware of our need to engage with and consult iwi during emergency. That controllers are aware of that, because I know Ben the controller does, but do all have that same level of commitment to that kind of partnership?
Yeah, so that's really why we have a description training plan that takes people through that. So, I mean, here we aren't really present in our sense in a liaison capacity. They're more than that. It's an operational plug-in to be part of the event. They're not there to advise on the event. I mean, that's the way we roll here. And we are, that reflects the variance with the way we roll versus the other 16 groups then, is that we don't have territorial authorities that we run as a regional group to then divest that engagement through another TLA or territorial authority. And that's the upside for us, is that it's a very close working relationship with those communities, but at the heart of that, obviously within the hapu iwi context, is the requirement to be connected.
Thank you. I'm happy to move the paper.
Actually, just one clarification before you go too far. The controllers are appointed by the joint committee or the CDM committee here. They're not appointed by the council, and they're responsible to this committee.
Good clarifying. Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. Thank you very much, Councillor Parata. Do we have any other questions? If not, do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Gregory. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Sorry, can I just clarify there? Will we just make those changes as the discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, I will move us on to page 17, Civil Defence Emergency Management Group Manager Report. Hand over to you, Mr. Green.
Yeah. Probably just fast forward to page 18, just really lists the key piece of work that's on the way, like the New Zealand emergency management system and equal legislation, so the emergency management bill. So the MSIP, or Emergency Management System Improvement Program, has been led in conjunction with the revision of the bill that was going through its draft form prior to the change of government. So simply the challenge, well, it's not the challenge, but the reality of the current piece of work for that at DPMC or government level is the compressed timeframe to get what key improvements really into what will be the briefing paper the Minister will take through to Cabinet next month. So it's certainly been far and wide. It's been led by DPMC as certainly in terms of emergency sector, equally within the local government key chairs. That's very much been a process of having to lean in in the short time frame that's been presented there. The themes and relevant, particularly with the links, and I did provide that link last year in terms of signalling what's in consideration for that. If you haven't seen that, it's probably where you can get a certain overview of what's been sought. And obviously those system improvements, an aggregation of everything that's been run through from the numerous reviews, and with Gabrielle, or Cyclone Gabrielle being one of those. So the time frame, as you see on 7, with phase 3 having just been completed, sorry, page 19 in the graph there, is that process that's sticking to that timeline. Ian will talk to that really at a NEMA level context as well as part of his report. Just given the report, we've got a lot in terms of chunk engagement here, but there are some quite key work streams that what I've just spoken to is obviously in terms of a national level prioritised piece of work that's very much on the way for us. And the group plan, which Stella is engaged with to put together the consultation, really that timeline for that project rollout. So the group plan really, if you look at that, it's really understanding the context of the hazards. It's effectively putting up by way of consultation to confirm the hazards that we're managing as a group. And in the context of that, really, it's is in effect really giving the setting group the purchase order in terms of really what and how we're going to deal with it. So that's a very sort of broad description of what's entailed there, but I'll get Yvette to talk to really what where we are with that process relevant to that. One thing I will highlight, we just in terms of really a capability demonstration which we ran in December last year, and the photo you'll see on page 21 of what we now have in the region with the emergency water filtration disaster ready treatment system. So that was one of the things we covered off there, but really the basis for having that system, and I'll talk for that one specifically because that is a capability that isn't in any other region, and as a national capability, it is an international system for deployable capability, what you see in that photo there. Specifically the large unit that I'm standing next to with to my right there is the new large capacity unit, and we've just had actually just before coming here a small whānau delegation from Northern Regional Council. We're here for Hui in the Lawson Field, and having taken it through this morning because their problem in terms of really the critical aspect of maintaining emergency water supply and equally their topography and challenges are pretty much the same as Tairāwhiti. So that really I find almost weekly if there's not sort of questions or requests to present to that, and I presented to a collection of Victoria local shires, about 76 odd councils in Australia yesterday, around really a lot of the kaupapa we're doing here. So it's not the solution for everything and everyone, but it is a demonstration of capability, and that capability for us is embedded down into our community level. The small unit, there's 21 of those deployed into the region. So I funded 6 through the Kaingaroa Fund. Ngāti Pro really in terms of really seeing the capability. George put another 15 out there. and having caught up with Lisa Whakataka last week around the bit that really for us in terms of that readiness and the community preparedness is the annual training engagement of our whānau, so being familiar with the equipment, competent in terms of how to use it because they'll activate it, and everything really that we have in that makeup for that same kit. I'll just move on to the regional fuel resilience, and you'll see there, I'm just on the two sites that we've rolled out, so just in terms of what is repurposed equipment that was deployed into Hawke's Bay, deemed surplus, and was put up for really for the sediment groups to provide inspection and interest for 12 months ago. So fast forward to December, which is the time frame it took to get here, really provided at no cost other than the cost of shipping from Hawke's Bay. But for Te Pueo Hospital and for the emergency services in Ruatoria, really now forms the ability to actually start looking at resourcing a critical fuel plan for that. Te Pueo Hospital, particularly if you may recall, really was, I think Black Bear Contracting was really where was their manaki that really allowed the hospital to keep functioning up there. And equally, really for the emergency services to have an independent ability to provide their own aspect of emergency fuel for generation. That means that you're not really drawing on the what the public would otherwise need, particularly if you are cut off and your commodities really reliant on supply there. So there, it's
Just one question on that. Fuel, so this is fuel that's going to be located in those areas full time.
For Te Pueo Hospital, so the storage, the unit as you'll see there, really the best way you need to use that, you can't have fuel sitting there for the purpose of that. So it's now embedded as part of the operational day-to-day use. They maintain that. Really what they've got is the facility have their own fuel stored on site, but they're using that as well. And Te Pueo, for example, for the emergency services, we get access to that fuel in the event that they need that as well.
Councillor Parata?
Yeah, I just want to, before we move on that, on this point and acknowledge the mahi that's gone into building the resilience for the Te Pueo Hospital. I was based in Ruatoria during Cyclone Gabriel and was part of the crew that was very anxious about the fact that the lights at the hospital were going to go out. One, because it's our only health hospital that serves level 2 issues, but it's our only access. And the other thing is that we have Pakeke that live there full time, so it became very concerning when it ran out. And thank you to Black Bear Contracting and Tairawhiti Contracting who provided that fuel. But as a result of providing that fuel and fuel for lots of other emergency mahi that we had going on, the emergency works for the road was heavily at risk. So this mahi, I think, will contribute to the overall resources and ability to look after ourselves in Te Tairawhiti. So I really want to acknowledge the work that's gone into that, and that fuel became a really big problem, particularly in Ruatoria, mostly because that's where the shop is, I think. But when they were rationing the fuel, so you could only take a certain amount, you could only put a certain amount in your vehicle. And yeah. Anyway, so just want to acknowledge that mahi, that it's clear for good work.
Thank you. And just, I won't delve too much in there, but I mean, equally, just acknowledging Councillor Clark's points here around the challenge of, particularly where you're looking at a fuel commodity and how do you transport that to rural and remote areas. Well, actually, we've developed part of our solution fit out for that as well. So that's really by way of specifically designed, used by the likes of military for the bulk transport of fuel underslung with the sort of machines that we've carried in our region. I think, if you look at 2 years on from where we are versus from where we were, there's small incremental changes relevant to embedding this, significant investment across various levels in community. We are certainly, so far ahead of where we were heading into 2023. It's a significant uptick for us really in terms of getting significant. I don't know if we've got a big Kinsella online for The report has provided the summary report here.
Please. Some report is fine. Yeah, are we able to take some questions down here, just in regards to your part, and then we'll switch across to the NEMA report after questions?
Yeah, just had one question on point 20. That, I don't know what page it is. 23. Who are the other members of the ESCC?
Effectively all the emergency services, St John Police, Search and Rescue, Lifesaving, Surf Lifesaving. Quite a, I mean, it's a key group, but it's very much a tactical group that really, you know, as a collective getting up. So, yes, and with obviously the change of promotion of Danny Kirk into the, you know, the regional role, now really this group particularly, you look at the rural police and the like, it connects the ecosystem within the emergency services framework for how we do everything that plugs into the system.
Before we hand it over to Mr. Wilson, I do just want to acknowledge the team's presence at the rapid response that they had. Like, it was from a councillor elected person's perspective, it was great seeing the relationships between our team, our ZDM team, our ops team, and you know the various different levels of rapid response team members and community members and things like that. So I did just want to acknowledge you guys, your hard work that you made in that regard there, Mr. Green. Any other questions in regards to this first part? If not, I'll hand it over to Mr. Wilson to talk about NEMA report. Floor's yours.
Yes, Jim. Yes, we are, and I use we as a collective sense. Yes, CDM is moving very quickly at the moment. There's a lot of work and issues on the plate. Ben's outlined the emission systems improvement program that's there. That has 15 business cases behind it that we're now developing the resources for. That will go up with another one. You may have heard the common operating picture. That's now been broken down into 5 or 6 business cases. That's looking at the intelligence field, how that will work right across the board, what we require at the national level, how that will feed down to the regional and the local level. We're looking at the national warning system. It's getting towards the end of its use-by date. We're also looking at the functions of the desks that sit within EOCs, ECCs, and trying to develop a toolkit. So once again, they are consistent right across the board from national to local level. We are looking at developing business cases for those that will also go at the same time as the MSIP one will go up. NEMA's developing quite extensive business cases for those so government can understand what the costs are and the resources are. And that's to go up by April 25th, so we should have some advice back to you. The other aspect that we're moving really quickly on is the bill. The Minister is committed to getting that through by the end of this year. We are trying best we can to obviously talk to all members within the community, all CDM, and there's been a number of workshops, there will be a number of workshops run, about 7, but we don't know where and when. Hawke's Bay's put their hand up to have one, so you may be able to go down there, or maybe Palmerston North, but they'll be once we've got the I guess the bones of the bill in place. We can look at it. We've already had meetings with the group managers, the CEs, the mayors have, so the chairs of the joint committees have a meeting on the 5th with the Minister to outline what's in the bill and how it's going to go. Also at a national level, we're going to run a national exercise on space weather. You'll be aware that it's reasonably topical at the moment, and part of it at this stage will only be for the national agencies. That's looking at when and how or if and who actually has the ability to turn the power off for New Zealand and how long that will be for. So it's quite a major exercise for certainly national agencies to look at. And then we look at the impacts of how it will flow down into the region, and hopefully we can provide advice on that as well. The other aspect we're looking at, a while back we had the Starlinks and we were looking at getting a contract. We've run into a little bit of an issue using the Public Finance Act here. We're just trying to sort that out at the moment. So if you're interested in getting Starlinks for the group, we're recommending that you actually go to an approved provider at the moment, get the contract there, and then once ours is sorted out, you can actually pull you back into ours at a different rate. Other than that, I haven't got a lot to add at the moment.
There's plenty, Mr. Wilson. Any questions? Councillor Parata?
If anybody else has a question.
Councillor Parata?
What is space weather?
The sun lets off flares or radiation, and depending on the magnitude and the velocity of it, it has impacts on our power supply throughout New Zealand, or actually the rest of the world. It's a major hazard for the United States. It can literally fly all electrical systems in the land, basically. We don't have enough resources to build those again. So if you switch it off and unplug it, basically you are safe. In New Zealand, our major concerns are Auckland and Southland, as they have magnetic fields. Southland because it's closer to the magnetic poles. We won't know exactly where it's going to hit New Zealand until basically it's on its way, and we only have limited time to warn people. And it won't take out, well, it won't hit all New Zealand, but it'll take out major assets if it hits us.
So solar flare will affect will essentially be like an electromagnetic pulse that will take out all electronic systems and things like that.
It plays a major effect on radar, navmans, space communication. Yeah. So our aircraft and all your guidance material will be taken out for a while if that's required. There is quite a good presentation on our website if you want to have a look at that, and there's also a very good presentation on the Australian Bureau of Meteorology.
Do you want to, because that's a very fair point that Councillor Parata has brought up, right? So in regards to space weather, and you'd spoken about the one way, I guess, of turning the power off before that EMP got there. Like, did you want to expand on what the possible solutions are that we're looking at in regards to space weather, solar flare, from a national perspective?
From a national, Transpower is actually all over this. We're probably one of the better countries in the world with respect of the arrangements that are in place for our power, and Transpower are obviously monitoring it. They're in close connection with the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia, and the solution is basically to turn power off. Other than that, the space weather or the radiation can affect our power lines. Even if it's still connected into the wall, it will fry it. We have had previous incidences. I think there's one called the Culverton effect back in 1965, where it took out a major transformer in Southland and just cooked it. The issue there is that we don't carry stock of transformers in New Zealand. They take 6 months to build. If we're hit, other countries will be hit at the same time. And I've got a funny feeling we're not going to be first to transformer for New Zealand. Also, we don't know who's got the power to turn the power off. Is it the National Controller? Is it the Minister? Is it the Prime Minister? And not only that, actually, how do we look at that?
Yeah, lots of decision making that feeds into that person. Mr. Green.
So it is a global hazard, and I guess really the work and we've been underway with some of the planning regionally for this. Really, if you look at, if you recall that when we had the unfortunate incident with the top dressing plane that took out the city power supply going back a few years now. That's pretty much a scenario in terms of business continuity planning for the critical sites, services, or even down a household level, because one of the things that will present if this event, and we are into the solar cycle now, which is why it's very topical and apparent now in our component, is that the impact of that, and much as Gisborne did go through, is that where everyone will go to rush to go and buy generators, you will have a complete, really as a national outage of really what emergency power systems will provide for. So, I mean, our work particularly with the likes of the hospitals around, being across really what it is, understanding the context of the time frame that it could play over, because it's not just a today thing. We're in the solar cycle now, which really means 2 year. I mean, that makes it even harder in terms of really, well, within 2 years you might get the follow-on or the impact of that as well. Our intention particularly is informing back in there and doing a desktop with emergency services and really keeping the community awareness on it without really doomsdaying the whole thing, because there is some stuff we can do things with, some things we have to accept. The national grid in particular is really what our key vulnerability is. Much as Ian spoke to with the transformers, they're a critical global component of any power system, but there isn't any spare capacity in New Zealand's grid with those.
We do actually have a national space weather plan in place for this already. And we are certainly looking, and obviously we can't guarantee, well, we don't know if it'll hit us or when, basically.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. Councillor Pahuri.
Thank you, Chair. So in the event of that happening and all of our comms taken out, do the radios that our bases hold, will they work?
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd say the reliance on digital radio network, which is our primary, they're dependent on fuel and access to those sites as a start state for their risk. So they are, and they could be impacted by the fact that, that's the spectrum of really what's affected electronically, up to including our cell networks particularly, radio networks with, I guess the key thing we're actively rolling it now, and part of what I just covered off, at least in terms of a rollout for alternate backup communications, is the third failover measure. It's very much underway now, so that's by way of these communications devices we're actively embedding into the region now.
Smoke signals.
That'll be the last option, because beyond that, that's that device. So it's a backbone of those which are actively put into solar repeaters, which are no bigger than a small solar panel. Putting a backbone of those through the whole region, embedding these devices, not so much in every household, but every key aspect that makes up a community to have connectors. Now that's a low bandwidth system. It's actually impervious to solar flares or up to including electromagnetic pulse. It's a nuclear bomb. But the range you get out of that, if it's line of sight to get a connection, is up to 200 plus kilometres. It's a low bandwidth system, and we're very much in the rollout of just developing the interface with that and coming to your place shortly.
Thank you.
Councillor Telfer.
Just one question on funding, on that type of thing, but the fuel tank, where's this funded from? Is this us funding it?
No. So it represents, they're $50,000 each approximately in terms of what that kit is. What was put into the national, or people put national on it, was asking who wanted fuel tanks, and apart from ourselves and Chatham Islands, we secured quite a lot of the equipment. So for the ratepayers, actually for all of this, there's zero outlay in terms of ratepayer contribution to this. This is where particularly with success, particularly around delivering, and if you look back in terms of the phase one for the Marae Emergency Project, we found really it just demonstrates that our kaupapa around identifying hazard, connecting the whānau to really what that requires, and being able to resource down to that level is where your, particularly through central government grants, is actually where we need a contribution for that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Green. I think that this is a really opportune time too to kind of speak about how the essence of CDM is how a community kind of stands and prior to it invests in itself in order to be able to ensure continuity across all of our different communities. You mentioned the low bandwidth communication. This is the prime time for me, I think, to be talking to our community to restart some of that low bandwidth hobbyist kind of comms that a lot of people used to. Think back to my grandfather and uncles of mine. They'd have these radios that were low bandwidth, and you could communicate even up as high up to the space station as it's heading over New Zealand. All of these kinds of things. So I love that we're doing our part as an organisation to get the funding to build capacity like this. It would be great to also send a message out to our community that niche hobbyist thing that you're doing in terms of low bandwidth comms, where you're able to bounce a channel off the atmosphere and then to speak to someone all the way down in Queenstown. that stuff is also valuable to our community as well in times of emergency. So yeah, it'll be great. I think it's a dual kind of conversation we need to be having. Do we have any other questions or kōrero in regards to this paper? If not, do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Parata, seconded by Councillor Pāhuri Huriwai. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, Mr. Green?
Yeah, sorry, it's nothing, with the paper. But I'd just like, in terms of the council, just acknowledge I've got the departure of Kumiro from our team. He's heading off to South Island in terms of... Sorry, he likes the Waipo number, so he's...
Okay.
And just thought we'd wish him well and just acknowledge his contribution and service, particularly during the hardest 3 years have been the last 3 years for us.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you for letting us know that.
His service for the district.
Yeah, thank you for letting us know that, Mr. Green, on behalf.
Around that, can we call him back when we need him?
Ah. Is he on this list?
Yeah, it's all within the scope. So.
Well, yeah, just on behalf of the committee, we've seen how hard Kumiro has worked. We've seen his contribution at this table and also out in the community. You know, he was the one that packed a Starlink and drove up to Ruatoria. That's why Ruatoria was our communication hub during Cyclone Gabriel, our regional communication hub. You know, so full acknowledgement to Kume. I'm sure whatever place or organisation that gets him will be absolutely lucky to have him. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Mr. Green. And on that note of thanks, we'll close our meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.